I'm looking at the opportunities for it.
Yeah, we're going to cover that because it's, to your point, it's getting to be some big stuff, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the mechanics of it. And it's not rocket science or anything. I mean, stuff that people learn today isn't going to just knock them dead, but it's definitely good stuff. This is probably one of the more organic sessions I do because I'm not going to slide everyone to death. We will have some interchange through chat, and if I need to show some of the products again, some of it'll be very baseline, and then some other stuff will be mid-range, and some stuff like out of this world. But you know, it's amazing. I have students that learn something like pretty basic, fundamental stuff, and then before I know it, they're flying.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah, good. Hey, Julio, is Doc Z in the house?
I haven't seen her yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen her. I can reach out to her if you like.
He's going to do a rock star show up. I get it. It's okay. Well, it's a little after 10, and I want to make use of everybody's time because we're going to sprint in this hour. I was just sharing with Lamont that who's with us today is one of our attendees, that some of what we're going to show today is a little bit of what we did a month and a half, 2 months ago now. Hard to believe it's been that long. But certainly the landscape of teaching is changing, and so hopefully these tools will be tools that were foreign at one point, and now are going to be pretty commonplace. And you know, I was just mentioning before we got really going here is that I've had some teachers that when I talk to them about buying microphones just to do better audio to communicate with their students, they would say, well, I don't want to spend that kind of money on that kind of microphone. And the reason is not because they couldn't appreciate that it was a good mic or anything like that, but it didn't make sense because it seemed like kind of a one-off. Like, you know, I'm not going to need that microphone. And now that's kind of changed because the new tools in the bag are going to be, what kind of camera do you have? What kind of microphone do you have? What ability to record do you have? So the landscape has changed, and the purpose of these next few days together with each of us, this 4 hours, is really around to help you guys and encourage you, fortify you, and empower you with some knowledge that you don't have today, or you might have a little bit of knowledge of it, or even for those that really have got it, there'll be some cool jewels, I hope, in what we're talking about that will help you. And at first, this will seem a little bit foreign to you, but then you'll start getting the vibe of it and what it's about. All the time we have people that say, you know, I bought a better microphone, or I bought this and I thought it would create better video or better audio, and it didn't work. And a lot of times the barriers to those kinds of successes that people have, just any kind of people, not just teachers, is just a fundamental knowledge of how things snap together, how they connect. And I get this response, and probably some of y'all will say it too, is like, why didn't anyone tell us that? Or why isn't that mentioned, you know, or why isn't that in the directions? And, you know, there's no real good answer, and it doesn't make me or anybody that knows this, you know, anything special. It's just that we too probably stumbled on it at some point way back in the day and figured it out. And so you too will become powerful in understanding sometimes. And even like if you're in a press to do video, sometimes the rush to do it, you'll have things assembled wrong. You know, like you clicked one cable to another and it didn't work, and you're like, what is going on? And then for one-offs, which is like, for instance, if you like, for instance, I'll give you a good example. If a superintendent comes to a trade show, an education trade show, and I want to get some audio and video on him or her, and I don't have my connection's right and they walk away, I can't go back and get them and bring them back and do ask them to do the shoot again. It's really difficult to reel that back in. So on a one-off where you've only got that one opportunity to capture somebody, you definitely want to make sure that your gear is right and that you're connected. You'll get so good at this, it'll be automatic, but even the best of people that do it for a living are all the time body checking themselves to make sure that they've got their batteries charged, they have backup cables, they've got all kinds of stuff. Because it'll be the time when you go, I don't think I'll need that you'll go to a shoot or you'll do something or you're going to go shoot video and the cable's not there, or the thing you thought you didn't need, you'll need. And you'll end up bringing more gear with you than you can possibly think of. So you'll end up getting like stuff to carry gear in, like a rolly, thing or something to transport stuff in, because it'll always be Murphy's Law that the thing that you thought you had, you don't, and then it kind of geeks the whole thing. But I wanted to kind of start off to kind of say, why are we here and what we're doing this for? And so I'm going to jump between a slide presentation, which I'm not going to slide you to death. We're only going to do about, let me see how many slides did I prepare for this. You'll love this. This is only going to be 14 slides deep, and we'll zoom on some of these. A lot of it's going to be, I was kind of mentioning Lamont and some others at the beginning, it's going to be pretty organic. So we'll do a lot of connection stuff. I got Julio watching the chat box. So at the bottom of your Zoom, there's a chat bubble. So if you have a question, there's only 22 of us, so feel free to chime in with a question and we'll try to take them on the fly. If you've got them afterwards, we're going to be together tomorrow night from 5 to 6, and then on Friday from 2 to 4 with a happy hour right after that, virtual happy hour. And all the drinks are on Laura. I don't know if she told you that, but she's texting me now. I never said that. That's okay, Laura. Anyway, so they're on her, but we'll get
Not really, Buzz. Not really.
Oh, she is here. Oh, nuts. Sorry. I thought you said yes. But anyway, so we'll cap off on Friday with a real hands-on type of thing for a couple hours to make sure everybody is good, and we'll get things rolling. So let's start. And again, I won't slide you to death. So I'm going to do a share screen here of my PowerPoint. Hang on. Share here. And I'll hit play just to make it look official. Here we go. Everybody got that? Hopefully. Okay, so new tools for teaching was kind of the idea that I had in leveraging audio and video for instruction day one here, and the basics are really what we're going to cover. And so in doing this, oops, back one. I wanted to kind of first start with why the session. And we've seen this amazing shift in teaching and learning happening where we're having to virtualize that which we did in four walls in a brick and mortar. And every teacher's in this game right now. And it isn't easy because it's kind of an unnatural thing. And many teachers I've talked to go, hey, look, I didn't sign up for this. And I go, I get it. But it's the eggs that we've been given, so we got to make an omelet or something here. So this is the deal. So what we're trying to do in this, again, and this is what Laura and I were kind of talking about, is to get you good with the basics on doing good audio and video, because you can have the best instructional material. Content is king, like a lot of people say. But if they can't hear you or see you well, or that delivery is a little skewed, then the problem we've got there is we've lost the foundational piece. We can't get the information to kids. And the really cool.
Quick question. We all just see a black screen. We're not seeing a PowerPoint, just to let you know.
Oh. Let me see. I'm sharing. What's going on here? Let me stop. Try sharing. Let's see if I'll. Maybe it didn't quite get you right here. Hang on. Bear with me. How about that?
Yes.
Ah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, I did the work. Yeah, there we go. So again, here we go. Technology, that, can get you every single time. Doing stuff live is always fun. But anyway, what we wanted to try to do is to kind of, again, get the premium of doing good audio and video together for you, so that you can use these things to reach students, because the old statement of the dog ate my homework is kind of off the table now, because when a lot of this stuff is recorded or done, it can be archived. And so if someone says, well, I have an Android, or I've got an iPhone, or I've got an iPad, or I've got whatever, usually these are device agnostic types of things that from delivery point of view. In other words, if it's in the cloud, it's always there. So if somebody said, well, I didn't get the assignment, or I thought I heard you say this, or whatever it was. So this is changing the whole delivery dynamic. And that's really what we're talking about, is a delivery model. And so in audio and video, they sometimes live together and they sometimes live apart. And what I mean by that is that audio is now becoming kind of a big deal, and here's why. Is that with audio, if you record something akin to a podcast or something like that, and it was an abbreviated what I call narrative instruction podcast, where you said, I want you to read chapters this and this, and it's about tidal surge or erosion or our oceans, tidal flow, or whatever it might be. You can delineate in audio what the students are to do, and then that audio sits there on a cloud, and they can download it, and it just gives them the abbreviated instructional bones, if you will. It's just going to say, here's what I want you to do, here's the concept, and here's what I'm looking for. And so then that way it's really clear to students what they're in a directive of what they're looking for, because sometimes that gets buried in a longer Zoom call or a longer GoToMeeting or WebEx call, whatever platform schools are using. Schoology also has Schoology conferences out there. So what we're looking at is that there should be no time that a student should have a lack of clarity about that. The other good thing about audio and video is that it's always on demand, and to the extent that if you were teaching something in a more long form, it can be, again, played back as many times as the student needs to get it. In traditional means, you'd be in a classroom repeating yourself over and over and over again to nauseum, and then at that point, you're ready to go find a place to get a drink, because it's just wears people out. And so it's really amplifying the ability for one person to be multiple people, because then the students can just go back and revisit it. So you kind of get the idea. So we're going to talk a little bit about leveraging audio, specifically around podcasting, and then also again, video, and where video lives and how to do it. So that's going to really be kind of fundamental to all that. Here. So we're going to cover some fundamentals, which are going to be some obvious things. We're going to talk about preparation, planning. What kind of gear do you bring? What kind of things that you need to do just to make sure that you're not caught short in any of this and have this stuff you need when you need it. And this really centers around some basics, like what cables do I need? And when you prepare for a shot, are you shooting at night or during the day? Is it in a noisy, like a conference? Are you at a conference with a lot of people? Are you in a room that's mostly concrete where it's echoey? All those kinds of things, play into how do you set up for the shot, and how do you take it? Because no two sound alike, so that if you get in a room that's echoey, you're going to get a lot of reverb. Some of the microphones that we're going to talk about have the ability to kind of reduce, the capture, so that you don't get a lot of ambient sound. So, and you'll know which microphone to use and what to do and when is kind of the test of everything. Testing your gear is always a big deal in playback. So when you get into an environment, and we talked a little bit about if you had a one-off where somebody was coming by and you wanted to record them and you weren't going to see them again, or you couldn't bring them back if it geeked, then the trick is making sure beforehand that you do a test recording, just like 1 2 1 2. Hey, you know, is this on? Is this working? How do I look? Am I too close, too far, whatever? And you then have this kind of parameter in your mind of how close to be, and is the microphone turned on. I had a superintendent in South Florida that I recorded, and he was in a real pressure situation, and he said, listen, come in right now, shoot the shot, get it over with. And he didn't have a lot of time. We clip mic'd him with a lavalier, and which is like the kind of mic that you wear on your lapel. And we shot the video, and we had to take it a time or two, but we finally got it down. And silly enough, in the on the microphone, there's a switch to turn this little battery pack on, and we didn't turn it on. And so we had to chase him down. Like he was on the 7th floor. I remember we had to go down to the 4th floor to find him and say, can we do it again? And he was kind of annoyed, but he actually knocked it out better in that third iteration. But it's just a silly thing like that you got to make sure that all those things are working so that you don't have problems. Lastly, I bring tons of backup gear. I've got cables upon cables upon cables. Now, you all don't need to have that many cables because you're not a videographer, you're not shooting all the time. But I would have 1 or 2 extras just in case, you know, that you thought you brought it, you left it at home, or for some reason the cable failed. It happens. You know, all kinds of things can go haywire. So again, if you're in a remote or you're even at home and a cable walked off, don't know how, you want to make sure that you have backup of your gear. It's a big deal. And those are really kind of, you know, like, well, that's kind of obvious, but it happens to the best of people, trust me. So here's some terminology, and I'm going to give you prints, so nobody needs to write all this. You're going to get this whole slide deck. You're going to get the recording, so you're going to have more than enough resources so you can sit back, relax. One of the biggest things around understanding terminology in this business is that people will say one thing and you think they mean another, and just different things. Like these terms that you see on the screen here, TRS and TRRS, these are very foreign to people, but they're very common if you see them. And I'm going to show you what they look like here in a moment. But what they are basically the end connectors of what looks like headphone jacks in types of things that you stick into your telephone to you know, use earbuds or whatever. And these simple terminologies are vital to you, and I'll explain to you in greater detail why they are. But TRS is the typical headphone jack that you see, and TRRS is the actual new headphone. Looks almost the same, but there is a little nuance in it that connects to smartphones and tablets. And I'll explain to you a little bit more about the relationship with these two. And this will be really important for you guys, because this is where things get geeky and fail. They go, like, people buy like nice microphones and they go, it isn't working on my phone. And the reason is this TRS and TRRS interpretation. So just stand steady. We'll get into that a little bit more. I'll show you visually what they look like differently. You all have probably heard the word dongle. It's used very loosely in the business. It can mean a number of things. I've kind of given it some definition that it's an adapter or device that provides capability of connection. And usually that connection doesn't exist on the device you've got. So like for instance, on an iPhone or an Android phone, in current, like the last 2 years anyway, there's no more headphone jacks. You can't plug in a standard headphone, which is annoying to people. So if you don't have the dongle, the little connector, a $10 connector, you're geeked on using a headphone or a microphone for that matter. So that's a dongle. An adapter is a bit of a different thing, because an adapter can alter the connection capability. And you'll understand when we talk about adapters what TRS and TRRS are, because those are adapters that change and alternate, change the connection capability. So we'll talk a little bit more like that. But an adapter cable is usually one of those types of things. Quarter 20 is a completely foreign thing. You would know quarter 20 from quarter shmoney. It doesn't mean anything. And what it is, it's typically the screw mount that you'll find on most tripods and most devices that mount cameras. It's the typical thread that when you screw a camera to a tripod, or any device to a tripod, that's the typical terminology used. Because somebody goes, I'm trying to screw this nut thing on the end of a tripod, and then some photo guy will go, well, is it a quarter 20? And you're like, I don't know that. Well, you do now, because that threaded screw that holds a camera to a tripod, I can show you here in a second. Where is it at? There it is. Here's a tripod here. This threaded end right here, that's a 1/4 20. And we'll go through it again a little bit more. Cold shoe adapters are a slot that's provided on some cases that you buy, and on some audio video products that you use. What's important to you about cold shoe adapters, it allows you to connect lights, microphones, other adaptations that you might, like a power supply. If you're running out of juice on your phone, you can actually mount a power supply on it. But cold shoe adapters are the mounting slot that you'll find on devices, and the ones that you all have received from Laura have a lot of them. So it's good. It's a good thing, because you think at first you're never going to use them, and you find that you actually start using them. And this particular case frame that we bought or got for you has plenty of them. So it's really great for that. Sec. All right, so we kind of talked about smartphone dongles, TRS adapters, TRRS to TRS adapters. See, it's going both ways. There's one converts from one to the other. Mic and headphone splitters. Sometimes people want to hear what they're recording, so they'll split that. And then there's you'll see there's more adapters for TRS to TRS and TRS to TRRS. And this is all sounding like a bunch of mumbo jumbo, but all these types of things about cables is a big deal. And so we're going to kind of go into that right now. Whoops, go back one, sorry. So this is the deal. What you're seeing on the left is the common TRRS cable. It's got 3 black bands on it, where the TRS one has 2. Now, the TRS one may look familiar to you, because that's the old style headphone jack that we've had with us for time immemorial. And it's typical of what you find in audio connections, like on headphones and also on microphones. And the problem is with TRRS, which is the new kind of style of connection for smartphones, it allowed us to control audio up and down volume, and then move to a new song, answer a call. So that extra capability expanded this connector. That's why there's 3 bands versus 2. It communicates a data communication different than just left and right audio channels for stereo. So what happens is that if you plug in a TRS cable into a TRRS connection, like on a phone, you don't get anything, or not much. You may get a little bit of audio, but you get no microphone. And so what you have to do is get an adapter. Then it changes one connector to the other, or vice versa. It sometimes can go the other way, depending on how it works out. The lapel microphones that we bought for all of you guys are TRRS, which is great, because then they'll be plug compatible with your connections to your phones through using a dongle, of course. So we kind of skipped this conversion problem. But understanding these types of things is vital, because this way you'll have the ability to make sure that you're connected properly. Because with phones, which are now getting to be the big video device, like you see cameras of all kinds, like pro style cameras, whatnot, the phone is now shooting like 1080p and 4K video, so you get a real high-end capture and all the kind of pro style stuff that you want. In fact, the new iPhones have wide angle and ultra wide angle lenses, zoom capability, and they're pretty good, and they're optical. I mean, they've got great lenses in there. All the phones are coming with some superior stuff, and you're finding more and more people now are using phones to record just about anything and everything, and it looks great. So if you think, well, I just have a phone, don't be thinking that, because you actually have a terrific recording device. But it uses TRRS as its main connection, because that's what smartphones use. And so as you get into using different audio products, you're going to remember that the reason it's not connecting is that this is TRS, and I have TRRS because I'm using a phone. And that light bulb will go on, and when it does, you'll be like, I remember this is what Buzz told me about. So anyway, we'll go into this more. I guarantee you, as we work through this in the next couple of days, there's going to be a little bit of question about this, and we'll talk more about it as we break it all down. And here I kind of went through just kind of a laundry list of cables that sit in my bag. That again, you for the purposes of this class may not come against using some of this, but then some you will. Starting off with the dongles, like the USB-C dongle. In fact, some iPhones use USB-C. I think the Pro Max uses USB-C as a connection, I think. Lightning is the more common iPhone or iOS connection. And then the connector at the end is a headphone jack. So one end obviously goes in the phone, the base of the phone, and then the other is where you connect your audio. The other two are adapters that convert one from the next. Like for instance, this is a TRS connection to a microphone that uses a standard headphone jack. So we go from TRRS, which is your phone connection, to TRS, which is your audio connection, your standard audio connection. And then it goes the other way on this particular little adapter, is that it goes from TRS, which would be a microphone that I would connect to it, into your cell phone with the TRRS. And that adapter right there is money. I mean, having that one is the one that a lot of people, when you're adding different microphones, and again, the microphone that we're supplying you, or all of you, has TRRS already, so this adapter isn't necessary. But if you used a Pro microphone, and I'm going to go live here in a second, I'll show you some other mics. We'll talk more about why that adapter can mean a lot. And then there's also male and female problems as gender issues on these connections, because you've got sometimes a male connector and sometimes you've got a female connector, and so you have to have the capability of having these types of things, because sometimes you go, wait a minute, this is the wrong connector for that. It wants something to plug into and not the other way around. And so having cables that have different connection capabilities, it matters because you're going to be skunked if you brought a different type of connector that had only connection in one gender or one way. So that's a good thing to note. So all these cables, again, you get this list in this picture so you can kind of go through it. But the descriptions I've given you, although abbreviated, really tell you in essence what these things do. And again, as we move through this course, you'll get to be a little more familiar with it.
Buzz, excuse me, we have a question. Can a TRRS cable fit into the mic port of a laptop?
Yes, it does. Generally speaking, though, TRRS is only on new computers is it really friendly on that. Generally, you'll find that most of the audio connections of a 3.5 millimeter or a 1/4 inch headphone jack, just like the typical audio headphone jack, is a TRS connection. I think the newer computers are now coming TRRS because so many people have that capability that they can actually make their computer stop and start a song. But I think most of the computers that I've dealt with are TRS. So it's a great question. But again, more modern computers I think are coming TRRS because most of the cables that people use on their headphones are TRRS. So it depends on the age of the computer is probably the best answer. That was from Judith. Let's see, do we have any other questions? I don't want to blow by anybody here. Okay. All right, cool. The same holds true for, since Judith kind of brought it up, the same thing holds true with iPads or smart pads if you're using an Android tablet. Those are all TRRS for sure. And so, you don't have that conversion capability problem. But the problem you will have is if you wanted to plug a microphone into a tablet like an iPad and do recordings, because iPads, as you know, and most tablets have a great optical capability on the back. In fact, I've got a lot of schools where the only camera that a teacher has to record something other than his or her personal phone is an iPad. And the only way to, again, get a microphone to light up or and be recognized by the iPad is using a TRRS to TRS adapter, because the microphone, generally speaking, has that standard headphone jack. And again, if it's misconnecting there because you got a 3-pole here and a 2-pole here, it's just not making it. So you got to have that adapter to bridge that gap. So you'll find, again, the best camera in the room in a classroom is going to be an iPad by and large, or some type of device like that. When you get into secondary education in 9 through 12, most everybody's got a phone. But in the lower grades and into middle school, you'll find a lot of kids, the only thing they've got to record with, which is a worthy recording device. I'm not down in iPads at all. I mean, they're shooting 1080p, which is a high quality, HD quality video. You're hearing a lot about 4K shooting. There's not that many people playing back in 4K. I record in 4K, and I think I told this the last time we were all together. I shoot in 4K only because there's so much great video data that comes in that when you dumb it down to 1080p or 720, which is what a lot of people would still use in 720, which is fine. It looks great. It looks even more brilliant when you're shooting up on that thing, because a lot of times the new phones will shoot 4K, and you're like, what do I care about 4K for? When you start doing video with some regularity and you want that crispy, buttery stuff that you can get when you shoot with it, 4K is the meal ticket. Now, it does gobble up a little more space, but the video quality just kills. So it's just something to know on that. All right, before I get into this slide, I'm going to break out of this. Hang on a second, stop sharing. Everybody got me, right? Are we good? Julie, okay? Or am I live now? I should be, right?
Yeah, I see you.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure everyone saw me. I brought and have a lot of some microphones here that I'm going to talk about, and these are these types of shotgun mics, and these are the ones that have the headphone jack type of connection right here. Now, the thing about microphones is they come in 2 flavors. They come either in phantom, which uses the power from your phone, or they come powered. They have their own power supply. In fact, in the microphones that you guys have, the lapel mics that you received, they use a little battery like this guy right here. In fact, I bought these yesterday just so that I could show you guys. Have a battery backup thing. Go buy a 76A. They're also known as LR44s. You don't have to write this down. I've got it written down for you. But the reason this is so vital is that when you use the microphone that we bought you, inevitably, and you'll do this, no bad on you, but you'll just do it, is that you'll leave it on, and the next day the thing will be dead because there's no auto off on that, from what I know. So if you're not a good steward of shutting it off, or you're excited and you forgot, make sure you have one of these to back it up, because otherwise the mic won't light up and you'll think something's wrong with it, and it's not. It just ran out of battery life. But the good news is that it uses a battery, and the reason that's good news is that it has its own amplification, its own power. And the same thing holds true with these shotgun mics. Now, the lapel mic that you guys received is much like this one I've got on right here on my lapel. They're good for, some, like an interview type thing where you want to put a mic on somebody like that. But if they're walking by, this is going to be something that is more of a mic that uses around 6 foot, 4 to 6 feet. 8 feet's a bit of a stretch, particularly if it's noisy. This has its own battery in it and plugs right in. It mounts on the cold shoe, what we talked about, cold shoe adapter. So on your frame that everyone received, which is this guy, it has these cold shoe adapters. That's what these slots are right here. These are cold shoe adapters. And these things are made industry standard to slide in and mount like that, just like that. And what's good about that is that it's a good action shot type of thing. So today you have a lapel. This mic, Laura, what were these pricing at last time you and I checked? Was it 39, 49, something like that?
Yeah, they were between 30 and 40 for that one. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So it's not a lot of money. And you think, well, that's got to be a cheaper mic. Well, Laura and I own this more expensive rig here, which is couple $100. But I will tell you to a person that this microphone here does this one dirty. I mean, this is a pretty good mic for the money. This one's got some other bells and whistles and features on it that, you know, when you get down the road, you might want those things. But this one is a doggone good mic. Now, you may say for the lapel, I've got someone sitting down. I'm going to put the lapel mic on them and I'm going to record them. That's fine. But for on the move type of stuff, you may want this. And in some cases, you may not even have somebody on camera. You might be just shooting something and you want to capture a lot of ambient audio to kind of go along with the video. That's where these come in. Again, this is a least expensive kind of thing, but it uses the TRS connection. So if I was going to connect this to a camera or to a smartphone, then I'm going to use the dongle. Yeah, I've got them here. You know, these little white dongles. Now, each one of you, depending on the phone you identified yourself having, received one of these. You don't need two, you just need one or the other. But this is the way that this connects. Now, let's see if anybody can figure this out. That's a lightning connector right there. And then on this end is the headphone jack. TRRS or TRS? Any guesses? I know you can't talk, but. So here's the geeky thing. It's TRRS, okay? Because that's how you connect your headphones, your microphone. So it's TS. You got it right. I have someone that got it right. So the problem is that this microphone wouldn't work. Now what's going to change that is this guy. And this guy is an adapter. And it uses TRRS right here, plugs into this like that, and provides another headphone jack right here. But this headphone jack is TRS. That's the language of this microphone. So then it plugs into, let me plug it in so you can see it all together. 1 second. So the configuration looks like that. This goes into the phone. This little adapter changes it from TRRS to TRS to receive the microphone. And now you have gorgeous audio. And it's just this little adapter. Because if you just bought this microphone straight away and plugged it into this audio adapter, you said, what's the problem? That's what this dongle's for. It is if you're using it like a standard headphone type of configuration that you would do with a smartphone. But that's not what you're doing. You're using an external microphone like this guy, and that's a different kind of application. And these are standard audio microphones you find in the business, and they all almost categorically use TRS. So there's the mojo right there. And now an adapter like this, just so that you don't lose your mind and think, oh my God, how much is this going to cost me? So you spend $10 on this guy. This one's about 15, I think is what we got them for, Laura, the Rode ones. And then the mic was like 39, as we talked about, or somewhere 29, something like that. So it's not that much. But when this becomes vital to how you record and what you capture, it's worth the investment. And that's what we sort of said on the onset. If I were telling you guys 2 months, 3 months ago about this, you'd be like, we're going to need that in a month of Sundays. But now it's a changing landscape. And you're going to find that this type of microphone, along with the lapel mic we got you, is going to matter a lot. And you'll start getting into it a little more deeply. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about in the way of microphones is that this, again, is your wired one that you received. Okay, it's got a nice little, these foam things are called windsocks, by the way. If you ever said, hey, I lost my foamy thing, the exact terminology for the foamy thing is windsock. It's meant just to kind of keep all the puffs, like if you go Peter, Piper, you know, that kind of stuff. So we should, Joanne's got another thing. So we should be using the TRS along with other dongles when using lavalier mic. Now the lavalier mic that you received, fortunately, is a native TRRS connection. So the one you have doesn't require that little dongle that we talked about for $15 or whatever. It's only when you're using a different, you know, like a pro mic like this one, that it's looking for that. These we bought you guys come plug ready. So all you would need to do, where's it at? Here it is. All you would need to do is get the dongle and connect your new lavalier mic and you're good to go. So that took that little adapter out. You know, and it's funny because and it's a good question that Joanne had, because some of the stuff you buy, if you don't look at the end of it, you're going, oh my God, I didn't know it had that end. This one more and more microphones are starting to come this way where they're TRRS ready. Okay. What else do we have? Without the adapter, is the audio just poor or not there? Just not there. That's a good question. Susan asked, if you don't have that adapter and you try to take a standard microphone, again like this, and plug it into this, you just get nothing. You don't even get one channel. You get zero. And so that happens. And Susan, I'm telling you, there are so many teachers that go, you told me to get this microphone. It's $50 and the thing didn't work. And the part that they skipped was that little adapter. Now, you're probably going to go, I couldn't recite this, Buzz, if my life depended on it. We get it. By the end of the week, you'll be telling people about this. It'll be second nature to you. And you know what? I buy those adapters, and I sometimes find myself maybe not using them because, like, again, like in the phone, like this particular setup that we bought you guys, you don't need it because you're already TRRS capable. You're ready to plug and go. You know, you got your little windsock on there, which kind of keeps, again, all the puffiness of pronunciation out. But inside this little housing, see the switch, is that button battery. This thing, they call them button batteries because they're about the size of a button. And if you don't, there's a switch right here. And if you don't move that switch to the off position, it'll burn the battery up in a day, easy. But the good news is that this is, again, amplified. It doesn't suck power out of your phone, because that's a lot of times when people are shooting all day long. And, you know, like even if you talk on your phone, you'll go, I just charged this thing this morning and it's like dead by lunch or just after lunch. This is not going to help. I mean, another microphone that doesn't power, it's what they call phantom, won't help you because it'll just suck more power out of your phone. You're fortunate that in the design that we did for you guys, it's self-powered, and as is this other microphone, this $39 deal this has a 9-volt battery in it, which lasts quite a long time. The one thing I will tell you that's a little crazy is that on this microphone that we bought you guys, there's no light, like there's not a red or green light that I've seen anyway, that tells you it's on or off. It doesn't have that. On this particular microphone, if I flip it on, I don't know if you guys can see this, there's a big green light right there. It lets me know it's illuminated, it's on. So it's a little more of a visual thing going, oh my God, I better shut the thing off. But again, a 9-volt battery in this thing will last for an extra forever. And the button battery on this, it doesn't draw a ton, but for whatever reason, because they're small, I guess it peters out after a while. But and this has 20-foot of cord. So like what's good about that is that you don't have to be right up on top of somebody shooting their nostrils or between their eyes. You can get some distance with it. So is the name of the cheaper shotgun microphone available somewhere? Yes, it is. Susan was asking about the cheaper microphone. It's made by a company called Boya, B-O-Y-A. And again, this will be in your notes that I'll give you. And, you know, Amazon and B&H. Yeah, Boya. Thanks, Laura. B&H out of New York is a big AV house, great pricing, great availability. Guys are just drop dead great. They answer questions. They're pretty good. Amazon, obviously, you can buy a car on Amazon, a washer, dryer, blow dryer, microphones. I mean, it's everything. So yeah, they're available. And Boya is a good manufacturer. I mean, you'll see a lot of times the name Rode. It's a company out of Australia, probably the best in the business on microphones around. If I'm wearing you out on audio, I'm sorry, but it's a big deal, and particularly a big deal. Like this microphone here you see me using is, again, another Rode microphone. It's on an arm that allows you to maneuver it around. And it's $99 for this, and I think it's $100 for the mount. What's great about this is, as you can hear, it gives you great deep audio. And I think I was talking to Lamont about doing this. This is really good for podcasting where you really want it. Now, you can get this kind of performance not for $100. You can buy a $40 or $45. I'll take a look online today because it changes from time to time. Mics have been tough to get because people kind of caught on. Webcams, hard to get because everybody's like going, hey, you know, the camera that's in my computer is not that good. In fact, every time I put my computer on the table, it's pointing up at me and I'm shooting my chin or my nose or something. It's not very good. And I want to have something that's more like what we're doing here, where it's eye level. You're looking, you want the lens to kind of be where your nose is so that you look in the camera. Because if you look at somebody off camera, you're like this, and you're not paying attention to them. So you have to kind of force yourself to look at the camera. But these types of devices are essential to doing good audio and video. Now, if you have a fairly new computer and you have a nice area, you can take a stack of books and put your computer up on it and get it, and the audio will be decent and the video will be decent. But to get it to the point where you want to do something like where if you want to move the camera around like this, or you want a better sounding audio situation, then you don't want to be whipping your computer around to do that, because it's kind of, it's stiff, it's not flexible like this. So, so the thing with audio is that audio, if you shoot a crummy video, let's just say you don't frame it very well and the person looks like a stick figure, which you shouldn't do that. We'll talk about shooting better video. But the audio will sometimes carry the video because it's so pristine and it draws people in. So when they hear it really good, they're like, wow, this is fantastic. So they kind of really get that mojo. Let me see, are Rode microphones compatible with a variety of devices? Yeah, Rode microphones are somewhat agnostic in their application. In other words, they plug into just about anything and everything. So it isn't just for Samsung phones or just for iPhones or just for iPads or just for anything. I mean, if you have a Canon DSLR or a Nikon DSLR, it plugs into everything. Frank, my microphone seems to work with my phone if it's not on. Doesn't seem to work in the on position. Is this correct? And Frank, are you talking about the microphone that Laura and I provided you? If you can, yes, okay, good. So let me address this, because we're going to come up against this, but we're going to go into this next week, or tomorrow rather. This has two positions on the one you received. One says off smartphone, and the other one says cameras. I prefer that for what you guys are doing, that you put it into the camera mode and turn it on, because then it's using the power from this. When it's in smartphone or off, it's using your camera's power to light up the microphone. Now, I have an experiment with that. So Frank, if you're telling me when you turn it off, it doesn't work very well, or better on, that would be interesting to know. I'll check that out this afternoon before we convene tomorrow. The direction that came when it says, yeah, I know. I just, that was one of the things I read, and we'll cover again. We'll go deeper tomorrow on this. But what I would recommend is anytime you can make a microphone have its own power, its own illumination, I like to call it, then I would do that. So my recommendation will be, and I'll check it tonight, is to put this in the camera mode, which turns it on, uses the battery inside, versus turning it off and using the smartphone. And maybe that clears it up. Doesn't appear to work at all on the on position. All right, I'll check that out, Frank, and let's bring that up tomorrow and see. It also could be your battery. One of the things that I got to tell you a funny story is that on that microphone that I showed you for $39, I'm going to get it again to show it to you. It has a 9-volt battery. I'm going to pop this out. So I'm not hurting anybody here, but I'm just going to say is that this has a polarity, plus minus, right? Or it's down here. And if you have it reversed, where the minus is where the plus is and the plus is where the minus is, in other words, it's not right, it's not going to work. So I had a teacher that got this, and she goes, I put the battery in. She was like mad as a hornet. And I'm like, all right, let's just slow down. Let's just take the cover off. Let me see. And it was just simply that she had it switched around. Some won't allow you to do that. It can only go in one way. Particularly, some are there's only one way the battery can go in. So it's just a simple thing like that, that the polarity is wrong. So on the button on that battery, Frank, might be that the plus is not where the plus needs to be. And I'll show you guys where it says where the plus should be. I will tell you, it's a bit tricky to get that battery in, because in the bottom is a little spring that holds the battery in place. And it's kind of tough to get that situated, but we'll overcome that and do that. But polarity is a big deal. Got to get that correct. So,
Buzz, we have a question. Does the extra length of a wire negatively affect the quality of the voice of the audio?
Generally, no, because and the reason is that these draw such little power, because typically what happens is, and what someone's asking here, is that the length can begin to diminish the amplification. The longer the cord, unless you're really juicing it, in other words, it's electrical, it's got to go a long way. It'll start to peter out by the time it gets to one end or the other. This is such a low threshold of amplification. It's not necessary. So 20 feet of this, even if you added an extender to this, pretty much by and large, you're going to get decent audio. But it's a good question, because typically when you get longer cords, you start to lose a little bit of quality. But in this particular condition, and these are all insulated or shielded cables, so you shouldn't get any RF or radio frequency interference or anything like that. But that's a great question. In fact, the mic I'm on here on my lapel, I'm going to shut this off for 1 second. I want to show you this to you. And this is the Rode wireless mic, and this has another piece right here on my hip. There's two pieces. One broadcasts, one transmits. Okay, I'm sorry, one transmits, one receives. And when you're in a noisy area and you're in a room with a lot of RF, a lot of radio frequency, what happens when people use wireless devices is that they can get infringed upon by other devices like cell phones, Bluetooth, all kinds of stuff can interfere with the, in fact, the janitor could key down his microphone that he's got a spill over an aisle 12 or something, and it will crunch in on some of this. This is the first technology that Rode came out with, and there's a couple other people that do it too, that it's completely shielded. There's no way that you're going to have somebody walk in on it or crunch it. Same thing holds true with a lavalier like the one you guys have with the long cord. Even if there's a lot of radio, it's just not going to protrude that or get in it. And on these wireless devices, becoming a big deal because they're like battle tested. I mean, you can just turn these things on, clip one on the person, put one on your phone, you're golden, you're good. Now these are $199 retail, they're $200, but the bad thing about spending this kind of money on wireless stuff like this is that people go, my God, the interference is awful. And this is the first iteration that I've ever seen that just turn it on. It's wireless for people that don't want to deal with all that other mess. And that's why I love it. It's just really, really terrific. So we'll talk more about that later, but this is the Rode type of microphones. Now, the other thing I was going to tell you about is that if you weren't buying this type of microphone and all you bought is this, okay, you can mount this on an arm or just on a stand. In fact, where did I put it? Here it is. This little pixie stand that Manfrotto makes with the what's the connection on the end? Quarter 20. Yeah. Guess what's on the bottom of this? Quarter 20. Yeah. It's almost like they designed it this way, huh? Well, they did. So then you can actually put the microphone on a little stand like this, and you can record with this kind of just like you're doing with this. And this can double as a good desktop mic. So if you're doing podcasting, or you put it on your device for mobile recording. So it can actually do double duty. But I think, I don't know if it was Susan that asked, who asked, but you may say, well, this is a long way from my computer to this microphone. What the heck? Well, you would buy a TRS female to TRS male, and then have an extension cable and plug it into your computer to get that audio. Otherwise, you're going to be hugging your computer with this microphone. So you can extend the length of this without losing any type of audio quality. So Joanne's saying, my experience is the same as Frank's. It doesn't appear to capture any audio on the iPhone when it's on, but it does on the off smartphone position. It's interesting. What it really kind of points out, because Frank and Joanne are talking about the position, again, of the microphone that you received right here, is that it might be even the technical design of this, that they intended it to only work a certain way for smartphones here versus cameras. And the switch, might have that kind of capability. I don't know why it would negate connection, but it does say when you're using it to only put it in smartphone mode to get audio. But again, this little guy probably draws such low power where another microphone, another Phantom would cost, or not cost, but would run out of power in the middle of a shoot, and you don't want that at all.
Buzz, another question is there a way to hook up two lavaliers to the same phone? Like if you're going to interview people in two different locations in the same room?
As you're getting technical. Yeah, there is a way. The lavaliers that are out there, you can buy setups that support either two or more, and it does multi-frequency connection into one receiver. And then they used to be a lot of money to do this, but now I'm saying not a lot of money, but I mean it's like $200 or $300 can get you multiple lavs to connect to, because what you'll have somebody with a lav mic, and then if someone walks up to you, what do? Then you have to have like a handheld like this where you go, hey, what's going on? And, you're doing one of these man on the street type of things. So a lav is no good because you can't stop somebody and go, hey, let me put this wire on you. Some people, it's just not that kind of thing. So you want to have something that is like in proximity, like close, like a handheld like this. And so there are ones that support a handheld and a lav at the same time, so that because ever seen an interview where they go, hey, let me ask you a question, and what's your name? And then the only time you can hear them is when they put the mic back to here. Now with the two setup, you could just keep your lav here and you're just talking to the person by putting the microphone in front of them. It's just a technique. So again, there's a number of ways. There's shotgun mics, handhelds, lavaliers, wireless setups like the one I just showed you. So the microphone thing is kind of nutty. But the idea here is if you get the audio down, then adding it to video is going to be easy. And now if you're someone that is going to do podcasting, again, you can use the Boya mic, and you can buy an extension cord for this to connect to your computer. There's free software out there to do podcasting recording. I will note all of this in your liner notes so that you can go out and become a famous podcaster. But this is a good way to get started in it. And then if you wanted to go into something more expensive like this, you could. But people do use these all the time. In fact, they'll even use them out of frame. Like you'll put them they'll be above your head, like you can't see. I'm holding it, of course. But if you had it, you can have it out of frame. And they work pretty well. Within about 4 to 6 feet is as much range as I'd give them on a shotgun. That's why the lavalier is going to be a good one. Now, for you people that have got the lav, the lav is going to be a great way to do podcasting as well, because this connects directly to your computer, again, through this TRRS connection. And you can record, and I'll give you some tips on some free software out there that you can use to do this type of use for podcasting. Was there any other questions that popped up, Laura? I didn't want to blow by somebody here. I think we're good. Okay. All right. Let me hang on a second. All right. Let me just go through 2 more slides or 3, and then we'll call it a day here. 1 second. Let me share my screen again. Here. And share. And make sure I do play on this. What screen are you getting, Laura?
I see your PowerPoint as well as the slides on the left. It's not in presentation mode.
Right. Gonna go there now. How about that? There we go.
Not yet. Still see the same thing.
Oh.
I mean, it's fine that we could see the other slides. Not a problem.
1 second. Oh, I know why.
So Buzz, while you're doing that, and we can see it perfectly now.
Okay.
While you're doing that, there was a question, and I don't think it's silly, but if you're using a handheld mic, is there a company that customizes the box under the mic like a student news logo, basically like your Buzz on Education?
Yeah, there's I didn't note it in your notes, but I'll add it. There's a company called On Air Mic Flags, and I think they're out of, let's say New Hampshire or someplace like that. And they make that, here it is. They make this plastic cube, and they do triangular shapes or whatever, and you send them the artwork. These cost about 65 or 75 bucks to get made. They got like a foam like interior that you just slide this onto the handle, and or you can put it on a mic like this, and it's just fun to have. They call them mic flags, and again, I'll include that information. That's kind of that's a good question. Never had that one before, but yeah, it's kind of fun because then you can have your school mascot on there, or you know, Live with Dr. Z, something like that. All right,
Hey,
here.
another question came in, Buzz. Any stand recommendation for the frame provided? So a tripod recommendation, I guess?
Yeah, that's a good one. And I'm going to talk about that in just 1 second. Let's just, because we're got a couple minutes, I want to kind of cover all this, but I will talk about tripods in just 1 second. In your gear prep, make sure again your phone is charged. If you're using different lenses, and we'll talk about that in just a second, there's wide telephoto lenses that we can talk about that are that can be adapted to your phone. Most new phones are coming with wide and telephoto capability, so you may not need that. Microphones, we covered all that. Tripods, which was the question. There's handhelds, there's freestanding and tabletop ones. There's also one that's called a fluid head tripod, which is more of a pro style one. We can talk about those. Maybe we'll pick that up again tomorrow afternoon. Lighting units. If you don't have enough available lighting, now video is a hog on lighting. It loves light. So if you, I can show some lighting units tomorrow night that I would recommend. They're cold shoe mounted. So again, they work with your frame because they have plenty of cold shoe adapters on the top of this guy. So that's good. And then batteries, we kind of covered that. Make sure you have either charge them if they're chargeable or new. And cables, already kind of covered that one. Just make sure you have extras. Oops, 1 second. Go back here. Lenses and cases. Right now, you may have a case on your phone. The one that you see in this picture is a company called Moment. And Moment makes this kind of guy, and they have a plastic kind of molding here where a lens actually rotates and snaps into it. I'll show this again more tomorrow evening. It gives an extra video capability to create a super wide shot or a macro, which is super tight, or a type of telephoto type of thing. And then there's also clip-on lenses that you can get that are inexpensive. Unless you want to do this kind of case arrangement. So that's another thing to kind of think about. These are enhancing the video capability. Okay. And then, whoops, sorry. Here's the tripod thing. You're seeing in this picture the beloved Gorilla Pod, which, pardon me, I'm choking up, that everybody loves. These things are terrific for a lot of uses. They're extremely durable. They can wrap around anything. So if you're shooting by yourself and you're like, wow, I need someone to hold this, you can wrap it around a pole. You can do all kinds of stuff. You saw the small Manfrotto handheld and tabletop. This one is kind of neat because you can hold it like this with your camera gear here, or you can spread it out like this in a tripod and set it down on your desktop. That's a really good one. It has a really cool button here that allows you to release this to make this is like a ball joint. You can rotate around any which way you want. It's really cool. We'll show it to you again in more detail tomorrow. Monopod is a single post pod. It's stanchion. It actually is a stabilizer. If you're out shooting by yourself and you just want to have something that stabilizes the thing from rocking around, and you don't want to bring a big tripod, monopods are a single post pod, type of tripod that you can use, and those are very handy to have. All right, and then last but not least, fluid head, which we talked about, which is the more pro style. I think I've got one more frame here that we talked about microphones. Here's about lighting. These are some lighting units that we'll talk about tomorrow night. Here is your gear. So what you received, I think that's a good representation of it, isn't Laura? Is the frame, your Ulanzi rig, and then your microphone, and then you've got one or the other dongle. Is that correct, Laura? Okay, Laura's nodding. Okay, I'm run over time, unfortunately, but anyway, we'll go over some more of this. The next session is really on getting all of this connected and understanding how how it all puts together. I want to thank Frank and Joanne and a few others that brought up the switch on the side, so we'll get that solved and talk about the battery installation, if for those of you that have stumped on that one or maybe not getting any kind of connection. And that's about it. Again, all of this stuff will be provided to you in liner notes that you can refer to and look at that and be further confused probably, but it's okay.
Thank you so much, Buzz. We greatly appreciate it. I know you've got our head spinning a little, but that's okay. It's a good thing. So we're looking forward to learning even more tomorrow and getting our stuff set up so we can be really cool and know how to do some of the things that you do, like podcasting and video editing and all of the great things.
Cool.
So thank you.
We'll get into it. Thanks, everyone. See you tomorrow at 5, right? 5 p.m.
See you tomorrow.
Okay. Bye now.